Okay, here we go. So this is the Salesforce integration session. My name is Chris Gothier, and we're going to use some REST API and JSON type stuff, which you've seen millions of examples of today, or this week, I should say. We're going to kind of use that to do a workflow-based integration with Salesforce and FileMaker. Who am I? I have 27 years as a FileMaker developer. I've spoken a couple times in the past. That was just 10, 11, 12 years ago, whatever it was. I did a SharePoint integration session. And I also did a curl integration session 11 years ago. So you can imagine how excited I am that they finally have curl in the product. There was some crazy stuff going on then, and I felt like it was an important time to introduce curl to the community. I've been 15 years at Green Pages, who's my employer, and I'm a surf enthusiast living in Maine, which means we surf all year round. I'm guessing some of you maybe have been to Maine, maybe on vacation. It's kind of a popular vacation spot. All right, cool. If you've been there, you know that the water's cold, and even in the summer. And so I would recommend, if you're sort of rocking that hipster sort of beard thing, that you wear some protective garments. This is my friend Charlie. This last week. No, that's winter actually. So I also like to take pictures. So we get some crazy weather up in Maine. There's these hurricanes that go up the coast, and they do this weird light thing, and there's always great light opportunities. So I take a lot of pictures. I know there's some photography people in the audience. So I'd show, this is a Sony mirrorless camera that I got. It does an amazing job. It's an A6300. We also surf off the islands in Maine. There's a lot of islands, and so there's this slab thing that happens where the water basically gets sucked off the island. It's really deep water, and then these crazy guys, not me, surf these tunnels of water that are basically breaking onto bare rock. So it's pretty exciting. This is more what I do. This kind of slide, that wasn't me, but that's my daughter, my buddies, this local crew. But again, the camera's really cool, and if you're into photography, I definitely would check out these mirrorless cameras. They're really neat. All right, so integrations. I was doing a session and I was talking to a bunch of people, and there was some confusion about what was going to happen up here, and I thought, well, I better clarify that a little bit. So this is sort of the life cycle we've been through with integrations. We did the 1.0, I'll call it the 1.0, and we got the open URL back whenever, and we did the great web viewer scrape. Anybody do that? Pretty exciting stuff where you sort of open the URL, jam it in there, grab out the goodies, and that was an integration, right? It sort of was. We'll call it fragile at best. And that's why I did the curl session, to be honest with you, because they had introduced this platform, this feature, and right away, FileMaker has this great community where they just do some crazy stuff. So people were doing this, and I thought, wow, that's kind of dangerous, right? And at Green Pages, we had actually started using curl, and we would distribute curl to the users. We'd sort of suck it off the server, stick it on the desktop, run some CMD or Apple script, and then we would be able to do integration, API-level integrations with some really simple XML files. So I presented that, and it was probably a bridge too far at the time. It also was a tough session. Did anybody see that session? It might have been in Florida, maybe, I think. No, it was great, because I got up, and right about now is when the mic broke. So the little clippy thing broke, and so then I'm holding the mic, and I'm doing the keyboard and the mouse, and it's getting rough, and I'm losing some time, and I thought, well, that's okay, I'll talk faster, because that's what Andy Cates does, and that goes really well. But Andy's really smart, and so he could pull it off, and it wasn't, I saw Andy after the session, and he used one word, evil, about the session. He said that was just kind of evil. It was crazy. But we got through it, and it was sort of an educational thing. It was super fun. I did, the takeaway I'm trying to get to is I do tend to talk a little fast. After that session, I had 2 full pages on my little review thing that people send in. It said, speaker talks too fast. 2 pages. So maybe we could come up with some little code where you guys flash me your flashlights or something if I'm going too fast, or just start screaming it, whatever works for you. So integrations, we got these basic ones we're doing. Hopefully, we're keeping those simple. We've come a long ways, though. We also do back-end integrations. We'll talk about that a little bit, because that does flow into how you could do a Salesforce integration. MirrorSync is a great tool to do that. We do our own. We roll our own. So DIY. Other services that you've seen here, where you are doing more of a question-answer session. So you're doing tax systems or zip codes, like dang, it's like in and out. It's one hit, right? we're going to look at the bottom one. So we're doing workflow integrations. And so what that means is in ScriptMaker, when you're cruising around FileMaker, you're kind of asking questions, and then based on the answer, you go do something, right? There are decision points that are happening. We're going to do that, and it's going to behave just like you're in FileMaker. So you're going to control with real-time data from other systems whether decisions can go, they fork. So that's the goal here. And it's interesting because I don't think there's been a lot of really, really good sessions on API integrations. And it hasn't come up yet, the whole workflow thing. I think it's been mostly, push and pull type stuff. But when you get a really tight integration, there's some risk there, but it is super powerful. And it becomes, because most of the APIs now are so fast, it feels very native. So we'll basically dig through that. So this session is about UI-based REST API integration. So that conversation that I was referring to, it is about common workflow scenarios, integration, FileMaker, and Salesforce. Who's using Salesforce? Anybody? Okay, good. And the rest of you kind of thinking about it, or just kind of bored and said this was the best session I could see? Okay. All right, that's okay. Sales, I'm not going to explain to you what Salesforce is. I'm going to assume you know what Salesforce is. It's a CRM. I'm going to assume you know what the CRM is. We're going to dig a little bit into the API documentation, FileMaker scripting, and some tips and gotchas at the end. We're not going to get into Salesforce API configuration switches, OAuth, all that stuff. That would take the entire session and then some, and it's really not very exciting. If anybody just saw Jesse's session, he said exactly the same thing. It's like really, really important, but it's not much fun at this event. So, we're going to do some of the funner stuff. So we'll skip over that a little bit. We're not going to do the back-end data sync. I'll talk about it because it is important if you're going to do the tricks that I'm going to do. And it's not going to be a CRM throwdown. So CRM is really a contentious, I think that's the right words, topic. There's a lot of players in the field. We've got some, you can do your own. Jarvis is a great one that's got a booth here. Microsoft Dynamics CRM is good, and you got Sugar if you want to do open source. There's a lot of options. There's also, again, a lot of contention around the product itself. So CRM is sort of trying to manage your contacts and your sales process, and salespeople can get kind of proprietary about their process, and so CRM is basically trying to enforce a process so that they can roll reporting and things up to managers, and they're trying to convince the salespeople that it's really worth their time doing. So there's always this tension in the CRM playing field. So we're not going to talk about different products and all that stuff. Prerequisite, I added this slide just a minute ago because I felt like hopefully you've seen all this stuff, right? You should know about tokens at this point. I'm not going to show you how to create and parse JSON. Right? Every session seems to have it. It's really important, but you should have it by now. Insert from URL, great, super powerful. You should know how to do it. And curl, same thing. These things are 3 steps. Okay, so it's not super complicated. As if you've been through the sessions, you'll see. One thing about API integrations, I would just say in general. Okay, it used to be something we'd grab a beer on Friday and it was like, ooh, we're going to go out to Google and get some zip code, whatever. We're way past that point. Okay, it really isn't assumed at this point. If you're going to be working in FileMaker, you are going to probably want to get out and do this type of thing with some other service. Okay, there's a lot. I use application sprawl. That's a little negative, but there's a lot of applications out there. They do a really good job at their thing, and it is just a great thing to be able to talk back and forth with them. Data integrity is another one. That's one we're really focused on in this session. So I want to basically say, I got some data, real-time data in this application based on what I've asked you. I'm going to go make some data and some decision points and stuff like that. Productivity is an obvious one. We don't want to be hopping around back and forth with apps, cutting and pasting data. In the past, we'd keep static tables of shipping rates, taxes, that type of stuff. That's kind of a bummer because it's static data, right? API Sparkle. If you walk into any meeting with some suits and you say API, you're like the golden person, right? So it's just a good thing to have on your tool belt. And to be honest, jury's out, you can decide, but I think APIs are sometimes easier than doing native tables. So they're wickedly fast. 4 lines of code, you're in and out, and you haven't had to push pixels around. You haven't had to make layouts. It's just like, I need to get there and I need an answer. I need to make a decision based on that answer. FileMaker's great at it. We're using a workplace innovation platform, right? I've been saying Swiss Army knife for years because that's the same thing. It's basically this little thing you carry with you, and it's got a lot of tools in it, and it's got a spoon in it, and you can feed yourself some soup with it, or you can dig some clams with it. It's got all these tools in it that are sort of portable. So it's like, to me, a Swiss Army knife, but we're going to go with the more marketable workflow innovation platform. which I think is dead on, by the way. I think it's really good. We do a lot of integrations to Green Pages. We've been doing Salesforce about 9 years. This you're not going to care about. We used to do it with SOAP and WSDLs. If anybody is aware of that, it's a bummer. You don't need to know. But we used to basically distribute, like I said, curl. We distribute the WSDL. We do some PHP execute. This is what it looked like. You don't care. This is what it looks like now. You do care. Super simple. You've seen these 4 steps the whole conference, hopefully. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. I think I got 3 more slides and we'll get to the demo. CRM for Green Pages is sort of this week. Whoops, sorry. Oh, that was me echoing, sorry. CRM for Green Pages, I like to call it the land of make-believe. And the reason I do that is because everything that happens in the CRM is sort of make-believe money. I met you at the conference and your name is Paul, and I put that in there, and maybe we're going to hang out and talk about a sale someday. Oh, now you call me, and so, okay, well, first I got to spam you with my campaign, and then you're going to click some stuff, and I know you opened it. Whoops, so that's good. And now I'm going to say, well, I better call him back, and my manager's on my butt, saying, you better call this Paul guy back because you put a campaign on a campaign. Now you get a task, and he calls me up and says, we should hang out and talk about some apps, and so now I have an opportunity. So you're making all this stuff happen, which is part of the sales cycle for some salespeople. Other people are a little more lax. And then I'm going to tie some money to it, and I'm saying it's a $50,000 job, but I think I got 50% chance of winning it, so we're going to weight that average. Now it's a $25K job. It's going to close in 3 months. The manager's rolling all those numbers up so they can get a pipeline. All of it's make-believe, because I'm what they call a sandbagger salesperson. I'm not a salesperson, by the way. And I'm not making fun of sales. Don't get me wrong. Salespeople are like, they know what they're doing, is my point. And it's hard to tell them that you're going to fit in this process. So, that's some of the pushback that sometimes you'll get from a sales team. But you can do all kinds of cool stuff in here. There's all kinds of reporting and great stuff in the platform. So this is what I just said. We do like Salesforce CRM, and then we are integrating to our ERP. All right, so a bunch of years ago at Green Pages, we had tried a bunch of these. We have a culture problem at Green Pages. You can kind of pick up on our salespeople are pretty strong-willed, and so we got a lot of new people coming in, and those are easy. We push them through the Salesforce process. In the past, we had tried SalesNet, we had tried DIY, and so finally we said, hey, that one there, Salesforce on the cover of CIO magazine, that's what I'm going with, and we said, great, you can do whatever you want because we're losing all the time. So we'll pick the number one, and we'll pay a number one price for it, and we're going to get this thing to work. And the problem we had was the new people are coming up, and they're like, I can do that, I get it, it flows. The old guard is saying, I don't think so. I got my spreadsheets, and I got my little sticky notes, and that's how I'm doing it. We were having salespeople leave because it was so process intensive. They didn't have to used to go to Salesforce and click and make an opportunity campaign, blah, blah, blah. They just were like, new quote, place the order, I'm done. I got paid, you got paid, everybody's good. So the goal here, and what I'm going to show you, get into the demo, is that we built basically our quoting system that will do all the stuff that needs to happen in Salesforce. So make an opportunity, market is one, all that stuff. And we do it without leaving FileMaker. So that keeps our old school reps pretty happy because they're like just living in FileMaker, they never leave. And it makes the new guys, they can still do it that way as well. So they can sit in Salesforce. There's a FMP URL I'll show you, which will actually crank down, pass in some parameters, and open up FileMaker and create some data for them. Okay? So that's where we're going in this session. This is the workflow I just said. Get the idea. This is the new guys, create the lead, all the green stuff. Hits a FileMaker, which is the computer screens. And this is the senior reps. They basically skirt the whole system. We did lock it down. They actually cannot even make accounts in FileMaker anymore. So they have to make them in Salesforce or lead. And then they request from the credit department to validate that lead. So the idea is a lead is maybe, I don't know anything really about Paul, but at some point we're going to start doing business. We need to get his DUNS number, his credit, blah, 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 right? So that's where we pick it up. We're going to ask Salesforce, I need Paul's stuff, and we're going to suck it into FileMaker so that we can sort of take the ball and run with it. Okay, those are the REST API calls. I think that's the last slide, so I'm going to have a sip of water. I'm not going to read those. You can read those. That's what we're going to do. It's much easier to just show you, but I had to write it down. Yes, that's right. Yeah, there's some lingo in CRM land that is a little weird, but yes, customer account is pretty consistent. Lead is the weird one because it's not really a customer yet, and so you put some money and and do some validation against it. All these things are great because all the APIs now are so fast. That really is what makes it work. Oh, look, demo time. I'm excited. All right. Disclaimer, it's a demo, it's ugly. I haven't done all the error capture on it, but most of it's there. You will get the file if you want it, and it's ugly. All right. So what I'm gonna do is, you know how you go, like, you're on YouTube and you wanna chase something down, it's a 20-minute session or whatever, and you're like trying to figure, you're watching it, and you're like, I can't figure out if the title is what I want, you know, so you scrub into the end of the video and you're like, oh yeah, you finally showed me what I want, that's not what I wanted, it is what I want. I'm gonna run you through this really fast, because you can't scrub this session, right? I'm gonna show you, this is what we're gonna do, and then we're gonna go backwards and tear it down, okay? So I'm just gonna go really fast, just so you can see what's gonna happen, okay? So again, I am the credit rep, and I'm gonna ask if my sales rep says, hey, I got this account I just set up. Whoops, I gotta do my authentication, sorry. You can tell I've done that before. I'm gonna skip this part, remember? But you get this, again, you've hopefully done this. It's a little token action, secret, all that stuff. We'll dig in if we have time at the end, but I don't wanna spend time on it now because it's just kind of boring. All right, so credit rep. Credit says, hey, I've reached out to Salesforce. I said, show me accounts up there that are green, right? And there's one here, and I'm gonna pull it down, okay? It's a little message just saying, and I've populated the fields in the background, a little message saying, hey, credit's gonna do their thing. Credit comes in, gives me some money to play with. I'm gonna make a new opportunity. I wanna push an opportunity into Salesforce for this account. We'll call it test 1. It brings back an ID, so it's made the opportunity in Salesforce, okay? I'm gonna mess around in here a little, make a couple quotes. I didn't bother doing structure to support these as quote lines. I just kind of made quote headers. We're keeping it simple, right? And now I wanna link this one because I'm not allowed, the game here, I didn't clarify that. The game here is, not only can I not make accounts in FileMaker, I am not allowed to do business, to place an order, unless I have put an opportunity against that quote in Salesforce. I should have said that like 15 minutes ago probably, but, so it's a hard lock, okay? So the game here now is the rep wants to like close this thing out and they have to link it to an op. So I basically, it looks up in there, it's reached up and said, hey, what are the open ops for this account? You can see this one here I just made, right? So it's up there. I'm gonna select that. This gets a little heavy, stay with me. So we linked it, you can see it's linked here. It also made a placeholder quote in Salesforce, okay? I'm just gonna show you this little, see there's a little op. So I sucked down the opportunity ID, plucking that out of JSON. I also sucked down the quote ID from Salesforce, okay? So there's another object table in Salesforce that I made in that API call. The reason I did that is because I'm going to synchronize, remember how I talked about backend sync, mirror sync, all that stuff? I'm gonna synchronize my quote lines in the background. Why? Because there's no workflow based on those lines. I'm not requiring anything of users based on those lines. I'm only requiring that they do an opportunity. The quote header's up there. This sync is gonna churn every 15 minutes, in our case, in the background. And as I'm working up this quote, I'm adding stuff to it, I'm changing quantities and stuff, it's pushing those up to Salesforce behind the scenes. I don't need it to be real time, I just need it to be up there. They'll report on it or do whatever they do up there in the reporting engine, okay? So that's why I did that. But you get the idea, there's a lot going on. I'm gonna go ahead and finalize this thing. I'm gonna mark it as 1, because I've talked to Paul and he's gonna spend the money. It's now updated my Salesforce opportunity. And it's also updated that quote. Never left FileMaker. It's moving a lot of data really quickly, okay? I shouldn't say a lot of data. This example is pretty simple. It's like 5, 6 fields, whatever, we'll look at it. Okay, so I know you probably don't believe me, right? So now we'll crank it open, we'll sort of start slowing it down a little bit. Any questions on that? I'll do a quick question because I'm trying to keep my time, but if I messed up the workflow or it's not clear what we're trying to do, somebody asks now. Why am I using Salesforce? Because in some companies, they say you're going to use Salesforce. So again, initially when we did our CRM, which is like the goal sometimes, a lot of the goal of CRM is to make a pipeline. So they can forecast what's coming up for sales, right? And they do that by these funny little calculations that say, hey, you talk to this guy, it's a $100 deal, we're gonna weight that deal. Like I said, it's a 25% chance I'm gonna win it. And they'll take that 25% of the 100, and then they'll roll that money and you'll tell me how it's gonna close in July. Okay, I think I might get $25 in July, maybe. That's why I call it the land of make-believe. Still valuable, but that's what kind of the CRMs are doing for the most part. All right, where are we? So I'm on this account. I've gone to my related objects. I don't know if people have spent time in Salesforce. There's my little dev contest that we talked about. This is the opportunity, right? You can see it's committed. And you can see on the right-hand side, I've got a quote, 374. There it is, big money. And it's also marked as 1. Let's do one more. I don't think if I want to debug that. Yeah, why not? We haven't been to debug it yet. Actually, I'll just do one really clean first. And then you can see it walk through the process, okay? So op2. There it is. Okay, I'm going to go back to my account here. I'm going to go to related. That's a little interesting. Hold on. Op J2. Yeah. Oh, did I not hit refresh? Duh. Oh, yeah, I just hit related. Sorry. Thanks, Paul. Op2. Okay. Let's click on that. Just kind of hang out here for a second. Right now it's qualified. That's what we sent it in as default. Okay. And there's no quotes over here. Okay. Let's link it here. There it is. It pulled that back from the API. Op2 I just made. Now let's go look at it. So now it's linked, so the op's going to look the same, but I have this little goodie over here, this little like quote header type thing that we're going to like back-end sync. There it is, 373. You can see it's pending. Okay. I'm going to mark it as 1. Okay. Marks the op as 85%, marks the quote as 1. %, 1. Okay? So it's working. So let's break it down. Let's look at the script, right? Let's do the first one, this new account one. Because I didn't show you that, and it's there's a little trick there. Nobody asked the question or raised their hand, like how you doing it, but let's just do a different one here. This little thing here is Troy dialog. Okay? And you could do it natively, virtual lists, all that mumbo, right? It breaks my personal golden rule, which is you should not be creating structure to support UI. This is variable data, which I'm just selecting. So I tend to use a plugin to do that. You could absolutely do it with virtual lists, it's fine. But it's just the way I prefer to do it. You get a couple goodies out of the box with it that you maybe wouldn't get with a virtual list. Or another way to do it, there's a few different ways to slice that. You can see this didn't turn blue until I selected it. Okay, you can also tab around, it'll jump around. So if I'm up here and I do F, it'll jump to F. Okay, again, you could do all this stuff, but it's a lot of work. You're pushing pixels, you're making some structure. It's all good. This is faster. This is one line of code. So that's why I do it. But that's what you're looking at here. Okay. So let's go back to this one now, where we made the opportunity. Create op. We're breaking it down. We're just basically asking first. Can you guys see that? Let's zoom in a little bit, right? That better? You guys see that okay? So we're basically asking them, you don't need to know, but it's like, is there any credit? Hey, enter the details. That is fantastic that we finally get, speaking of variable space, we get to do a variable here in our dialogues, right? That's pretty good. We used to use the globals and yada, yada, yada. It's kind of felt old school, right? That was a long time coming. Comes through, basically gets some goodies here. Record type ID is when you're in Salesforce, you can say I'm making an op and it's a pro services engagement, it's a procurement engagement. I just hard-coded this one, but you could ask it. Again, you're chaining your API calls together because you're doing this workflow dialogue thing with it. You could ask it, what are my types of opportunities? So I got 5 of them, pick one, and then you pull it back at this ID. I just hard-coded it to keep it simple, okay, because it's a demo file. Data. Okay, this is what I'm going to send up. So hopefully you've seen a bunch of that. I'm not going to explain it. But I'm basically doing a post right here, right? There's my curl options. I'm posting a bunch of data up into Salesforce. I'm sending it to this opportunity. It knows I want to make a record because I'm doing a post. So let's take all that data stuff, jam it in the record. Okay, insert from URL. There's the magic. There's my little cred error. I bring it back and I just kind of like grab the op ID and I show it on the screen. You wouldn't normally do that, of course. Right, and actually tie it together. All right, make sense? Let's do a little fancy. So I showed you these fields, right? These fields, right? So that's good. I've now given you a tool to do this, but you're like, well, those aren't my fields. I got 10 more fields I want, right? Let's look at how to get another field in there. Okay. So if we jump out to Salesforce and we go to Setup, and let's see, we're going to go to, whoops. What just happened? Wow, I just lost my little dude on the left. Do you know how to get that back, Paul? Come back. There it is. We're going to go to Objects, which is tables, right? Object Manager. I think we're going to Accounts. Is that true? No, we're doing Ops this time. Ops, Opportunity, Fields and Relationships. And let's say I want to jam some money in there. So on my Opportunity, I have this field here called Pro Services Amount. And right now I'm not sending that. We just saw the data stack. I'm not sending it, right? But I want to send it. So I'm going to scroll around in here a little bit. Pro Services Amount. Anybody see it? Pro Services. Keep going, right? There it is. This is the field. This is the title. So when you're going to mess around in here, you want to grab the fields. __C means it's custom field in Salesforce. That's how they do it. Field name. Okay? So we grab that. I'm not going to type it. I'm just going to turn my stuff on. I'm also going to turn on this extra goodie here in my 1917 dialog, and I'm going to pick up that amount. Right? So I'm just saying, hey, I used to ask you for the op name. I'm going to ask you for the op name and the money. Okay? And down here, we're going to turn this one on here. And you can see this is where I'm asking it for that Pro Services amount, and I'm just picking up that PS amount that I asked you for a minute ago. Fair enough? We'll save that. Show opportunities, sum, op, devcon, whatever. $99. So now we've made another op. We got an ID back, so we know it's there. Let's take a look. Some op devcon, I think that was it. Okay, it's my $99. So it's really easy, right? You can see, like, you're going into the schema in Salesforce. What's the field? Put it up. You do ITG data. Super simple. Same thing on the way down. I'm going to go back to this one for a second. That was a post. We're making data. We're communicating, making decision, making data. This one was a query, right? So I'm asking it for, blue something. Okay. A query in Salesforce is run in the SOQL language, SOQL. I'm not sure why they call it that, but they did. So here, in this script, you can see the URL. Well, maybe. Ding, ding. Right? This looks a lot like a SQL query, right? Because it pretty much is. Couple differences with Salesforce. The fields are not case sensitive, nor are the tables. Okay? So if you wanted to mess around in FileMaker, you could take my example and just kind of play around. That works. You could use Postman. Or you could use their product, which is called Workbench. So let me show you that real quick. Okay? Actually, while I'm here, I'm going to show you another trick. Let's say I wanted to add a field to this. So again, in this query, you can see I'm asking for name, ID, billing address, maybe. Can you see that? I'll zoom in a second. We'll turn that one off, and we'll turn this one on. And I'm going to ask it for the phone now. How did I know to get the phone? Because I went and did that setup dance, and I paddled around in accounts, and I said, oh, there's a phone. It's called phone, and I stuck it over here. Okay, super simple. So now I'm going to get the phone, right? Just add that to my query. We want to save that, and let's just do the same account because I know there's a phone there. And now I got the phone, right? Super simple. Just pushing them back and forth. That was a query, the other one was a post. Oh, Workbench. I was going to show you Workbench. All right, so Workbench is, it's part of Salesforce. You log in with Salesforce, so you're, that authentication thing you do in Postman, if any of you do a Postman, you don't have to do that because you're already in Salesforce. But it's the same idea, they've just kind of separated it. You're going to go down to REST Explorer, and you're going to log in here. This is where you put that little query. You can see I got a bunch of them here. It's really pretty cool. I guess I'll just pick the one. I had some queries set up here, but well, I know these ones work, so let's just do these ones. Workbench queries. I did a couple examples. You can see like here, I'm asking for the exact name, where name equals. Again, here, very SQL-y, right? We're doing like, we got percentage on either side. And here we're saying, oh yeah, also give me the billing address. I'll do this one because it's just got the most data in it. Whoops, didn't want that. So you put this in here, execute it, this is what you'll get back. You're like, oh, look, it's working. You go down, one of these will have an address hopefully on it, billing address. So you can see you got some nested JSON, you got to parse out on the way back in, yada, 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 right? But that's how that works. And you can play around in here. You'll see when you break it, when you get it wrong, it's really good as far as messaging. Tells you what's going on, tells you what you screwed up. You also see that, let's put it back. It's working, right? Let's break it, not break it, right? That would break SQL. It doesn't break Salesforce. Tip. Okay. Let's keep on trucking. So we got we got an account, we brought it down, we made some opportunities, haven't left here. I'm doing a little, whoops, I gotta make some credit. I made a couple quotes, I'm working them up. So before I showed you this one, which is a link, so let's go look at that. This gets a little more complicated, right? Because I'm chaining my workflow events together. Again, like a lot of the sessions you'll see here, it's these one hits, right? And it's really good, but when you start chaining things together, there's consequences, right? And we'll talk about those down the road, but you want to start to be thinking of that because you're already doing it in FileMaker, right? You're scripting stuff. You make workflow decisions all day long. It's no different when you're doing API calls, and it feels very native because the stuff is so fast, right? And you haven't had to push pixels, make layouts, make tables, all that stuff, right? All right. Link this quote. Again, here it ran out and did it. That's just a refresher, and then it does some other stuff. So let's go look at that script. Should probably check my time, right? 17 minutes. I think I'm right. Link, this one here, right? All right. You guys see that? We'll zoom a little bit, I guess. All right. So what am I doing? I'm asking for the name and the ID of, I'm looking for the name and the ID of the opportunity for this account, right? That's all that's happening. Brings it back in that, and again, I sort of format it with that, I do the insert, check my stuff, close the popover, format up my JSON, right? A little debug action there that I put in for you. I'll show that with the debug in a second, just because I forgot to. And then this little section here is just to build the loop for Troy. So what happens is in Troy, you run your JSON array, you got some stuff, right? And then what I want to do is sort of loop through that really fast so I can get it in that little pop-up with the names, because you don't care about the IDs, right? And you say, I picked the third one. Well, that's useful information because you see a name, I see a 3. Then I'll go back through my JSON array and I'll say, give me the ID for 3. And then I'll jam that ID onto the, right? Make sense? So that's all that's doing. Here's my one line that is that dialogue. There's a bunch of these dialogue tools, by the way. I picked Troy just because we've been using it forever, but there's like at least 4 or 5 of them. It's just, again, something that I'm sure at some point FileMaker will introduce because now that they've got these dialogues with the variables, they're obviously starting to think about that a little bit, which is great. But in the meantime, I kind of like the way this works. So again, here's my selected. That's the one I selected. And then I pluck out from the JSON, right? I'm saying, give me from the records of that thing, and I'm getting these 2 fields. And I just jam them in the fields. Jam them in the quote. This is the part where I go make the placeholder quote. Okay? So same dance. I'm basically just saying, again, I made the opportunity. I want to make this quote header because I'm going to back in those quote lines with the sync. And I'm just it's the same thing. There's like make opportunity. It's saying, okay, now go make a quote. I'm chaining things together. Okay? I don't even think we need to review that, right? It's pretty straightforward. One thing noting is this quotes table is, again, quotes _C. It's a custom table we've added. That's how Salesforce does it. If it's custom. Okay? It's my data element. I guess we'll look at that. Okay? All right. I guess why don't we debug one just for fun? We haven't done that yet, right? So here we go. I'm going to link it. I pick up the quote description. This is the script we were just looking at. It's a little bit redundant, I guess, but So what do we got at that point? We've got our result, right? That's the list of opportunities for this account. Here's our URL where we were asking for that. Pretty straightforward. Got some curl options in there. All right. Now I'm looping. Let's kind of get to the breakpoint on that. I've made an array of that data and I popped it. Okay? That makes sense, right? I guess I'll just let it run through. Okay, what else? Update, patch, right? So we've done post, we made some stuff, we did a query, and now we're gonna patch, right? We're gonna say, hey, I want it, yay. So let's do that one. So this is when I tickle this thing here, remember it goes and updates not only the quote, but the opportunity. So let's do that one. I think it's, let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. We spin the data. So I'm presenting one, and the actual values up there, the stages they call them, are different values. So I'm just spinning that. That's all that's happening there. Really simple. We're just sending up the stage name, right? We have there's our patch, right? Because we're updating it. This is the opportunity I'm going to hit. I'd pick that up, and we insert from URL. Same old, right? Check for error, quick error there. And when we get back, we just let you know what happened. Same thing on the quote, right? Patch, and that's it. So they don't normally do all those steps, right? So they don't necessarily do this link thing. They just want to say, hey, just let me hit the thing. So I'll make a couple new quotes, and we'll use this 378 as an example. They want to just hit the shopping cart. So now I'm going to take all those things we looked at, right? This is your enforcing workflow here. I'm going to stop you from hitting the cart unless you've got an opportunity. And if you don't have an opportunity link, I'm going to present the opportunity list to you, and you're going to pick it, and you're never going to leave here. And then they're going to be hooked, and you will have fulfilled the requirement, right? I'm making this up because this is how we do it, but you can envision other scenarios. There's about 1 million of them, right? So it looked, it said, hey, you know what? You're not going anywhere. You can't place this thing, right? And it's going to say, oh, no problem. Let's link it. I guess we'll link it to op2. Okay, it linked it. It made a quote header. It marked the opportunity as 1, and it marked the quote as 1 in Salesforce. Never left FileMaker. Okay, there's a little debug switch here. I forgot to show you this, but if you want to mess around with the JSON or whatever, throw the debug switch, and you'll basically be able to get a visual there as opposed to trying to do the data view or whatever. But if you want to mess around with that, you can do that. All right. Let's see, 24 minutes. How's my card doing? How am I doing? She hasn't flashed the sign yet. I'm doing good. Okay. All right, so that's for the old school people, the people that never want to leave FileMaker. In Salesforce, you can also, I'm going to go into our sandbox because I only have this in our sandbox at the moment. But if you're the new school guys where you come in and they're like, hey, you will go to Salesforce, you will enter opportunities, campaigns, tasks, manage them there. And when you're ready, you will then come into FileMaker and you will make a quote, right? And, obviously they copy and paste all that stuff, not so much. So we want to help them with that with FMP URL. Okay, we're going to basically use a URL with some parameters on the end of it. It's really simple to do unless you're in Salesforce, and I'll show you why. Because of security. So Salesforce went from, I don't know what they used to call it, but now they have this thing called Lightning, and Lightning has a lot more security in it. So back in the day, we would run some JavaScript to get this to work. I guess I'll show it to you first, and then we can look under it again. So I got a couple opportunities here that I've made in Salesforce. And I have this account here. There's no quotes on it, obviously. So the idea is, again, I'm the new guy. I'm doing all my work, and I'm like, ooh, I think I'm going to go. It's time to go. Create FileMaker quote, passing in parameters. It'll pass here, and it'll make the data. Here's my FMP URL op. Okay, let's look at the other one just to show you it's working. Whoops, I guess I should have gone here. Which one did I just do? FMP test op. So let's do DevCon demo. Let's make the op, push it through, picked up my parameters, made the data. Okay, super simple. Here's what it looks like. Right, it's just picking up the URL, parsing out the goodies, punching some data. Really simple. Why is it hard? Because they introduced new security layers in Lightning. So again, I'm not sure how many of you are actually using Salesforce. If this makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. This is how we used to do it with JavaScript. This was a button, and we would basically, you can see, we used to use we had a server in the DMZ, so we didn't go directly to FileMaker. That's why it says ws.greenpages.com. So, but the idea is there that you basically could put a URL in JavaScript and it would go. You don't do that anymore. So you make a button, that part looks easy, which calls a controller. And the component, and the component looks like this. Okay. And the controller is where you put in this is where it looks familiar, right? So you can see I've got a URL constructed, it's got the FMP protocol, blah, 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 it's saying script, right? And it's picked up these components or these fields from Salesforce, and it's gonna push them through the FileMaker. Okay? I guess I can show you, there's here, a developer console. This is where those things live. I just screenshotted them because whatever, right? But again, here's the little thing you'd play with. Okay. That make sense? Yep. Yep, I'm ready.
How does the application behave if the record you're trying to modify in FileMaker stop?
Yeah, good question. So you could test it in your script, right? And say, what is it, open record or whatever I think is the test that people do. So in your script, you'd say, open record, is it locked, capture the error, and then they would just do it again. But typically, I'm trying to think if that would actually happen in this case. Yeah, because you're on the account level, so maybe the credit rep's in there adding credit to it, and you're excited, and you're like, hey, you're gonna give me some money? Yep, give me the money, and you're coming in and you're saying to push it through. Typically not, because you get an email back saying it's done, but if you try to get jumpy, yeah, it could happen, so you would want to catch that. So again, it's kind of a demo file. Like the whole thing with demo files, that's why I say it's ugly. It's like, it's a trick because some demo files you put you go in the script when the guy is speaking and there's 40 lines of error capture and you're like, oh man, right? And you just want to see the goodies for the most part. So I kind of put a little bit of goodies in there, but absolutely you could, if you took this file, you would want to add some more error capture in there, for sure. Yep, okay. Go ahead. Which button would you be referring to?
When you have a drop down of your wins or whatever, and somebody clicks the wrong one.
Yeah. So back in FileMaker? Yeah. Let's see. So for example, if I did this and I didn't like my selections, you mean? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I haven't done anything yet. Oh yeah, it's like anything. You've picked up parameters and made a record. So you'd have a delete button on your layout that says delete the record. Yeah, so. But this is all variable space, so obviously if you cancel it, it just doesn't do anything. Make sense? I totally lost track of my time. Can someone tell me how am I doing on time? You have 15 minutes? Oh, that's good. Okay. Any other questions? Go for it. It's your typical token thing. So Salesforce has OAuth 2.0. Let me show you a little bit about, I'm not going to deep dive on that, but it's worth knowing what you're getting into. Actually, if I go back to my slides, you'll see, I think I got a little slide on that, so let's do that. Oh, yeah, tips and gotchas. That's funny, I can't see that anymore. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Tips and gotchas, okay. So if you're gonna do this, you need this, I mean, God knows it'll change the name tomorrow, but it's called the Developer Edition. There's actually 5 or 6 different flavors now, but just because you have Salesforce doesn't mean you get to do the API. Okay. Salesforce IDs are Unicode. Does anybody know what that means? Case sensitive, right? So the switch is in, I'll show it to you, why not? Lost my little FileMaker guy, here it is. When you go into a field here, typically. We'll go to quotes, because that's where I was jamming those IDs, right? So here's my Salesforce ID. If I go here and I go to storage, it's set to Unicode. Not super obvious, and it will hurt you, because it will look like it's working if you don't set that. You'll pull down an ID, it's like, hey, I got an ID, right? But it's case sensitive. And then you're going to go to jam a record onto Salesforce, and sometimes it will work, and sometimes it won't. That'll hurt you. Whereas, like here's a text field, and if I go to storage, it normally says English, or I assume if you're in a different language, it goes somewhere else. But make sure on any of your Salesforce IDs, you've got them as Unicode as you send them back and forth. Tip. All right, back here. Use single sign-on. So we used to use Ping Identity. I think we're using, I don't know why I said MS Azure. Is that right, Paul? Yeah, I know we're doing Microsoft, but I can't remember if it's part of the Azure thing or whatever. But anyway, you want to try to use a single sign-on thing. It just makes that whole experience that we had there, I felt was pretty fluid, right? You're going back and forth. You're not leaving the app. If I want to hop to Salesforce, there's no credentialing that's happening. That's because I'm using, I'm using a party to do that. So if you're going for that sleek look and feel for your audience, make sure you're using that. It's like AD, right? It's just kind of a nice thing to do. API versions, you might have noticed when I went into Workbench, Rest Explorer, they get this number here. And if you go to my queries, it's actually on 40, because I wrote the demo a while ago. But they're rocking these APIs. So this goes back to the fragility of like when people used to scrape pages and stuff. If you haven't done any API work, they're protecting you because they're changing their schema. And you're hooked to they're 40. I'm hooked to 40. But maybe in 43, they changed a field name, or they added some new fields, or they changed structure. I'm protected, because when I send in my query, it says use 40. Don't use the new stuff. He's not ready for that, right? So that's your protection there. So pay attention to that. It won't hurt you. It's just making you aware, like someday you'll wake up and like, oh my God, I'm still on 40, right? And I look and it's on 50. And it's like, what did I get? Let's go find out, So you want to be revving it if you need the stuff. That plus sign I talked about, if you're going to play around with that query thing, they want you to put a plus sign where your spaces are. Did I mention that? Oh, let's do that. Sorry. Well, if you're going to use this Workbenchy thing, see how they get these plus signs here? That threw me for a while, because I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm getting some answers. It's great. So I go to FileMaker and I say select blah, blah with the plus signs, right? No, don't do the plus signs. Their tool wants the plus signs. FileMaker doesn't. That just saved you half a day. Yeah. What else we got? Not case sensitive, I did say that. Connected apps, so there's this whole, we skipped over all of the Salesforce configuration. So basically, it's like, did anybody see Jesse's session a minute ago? No, on the Amazon one? There's a whole bunch of little switches you kind of want to throw, or the Tableau one is very similar to this. You have to tell Salesforce, yeah, FileMaker's okay to come and hit me through the API. That's basically what's going on, to simplify it. But they call it a connected app. But you can do all kinds of good stuff in there. I'll show you where the switches are in a minute. Last comment, if you're going to build a really tight workflow-based API integration, that's what we just did, right? A workflow-based API integration, build a kill switch. Okay? There have been 2 times in 9 years that Salesforce has gone offline. We could not do business. Right? Because the management had dictated that this thing has to be super tight. You cannot place an order unless you have an opportunity. If you don't have a kill switch, then you're sending people home. So build the kill switch right away, and then you throw the kill switch and it says, hey, you don't need to play by that workflow rule and rule, just do your business. And we'll come back and fix it later. So workflow API integrations, I talked earlier, really early, about some risks there. It's super cool when you're when it's first hit it, get my answers, and then it's hit it based on the decisions, I'm making all this progress, that gets a little risky. Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is sometimes. Yeah, because you can do all kinds of crazy stuff in Salesforce. I mean, like in FileMaker, right? It's those auto-enter values, got to be member lists and stuff. In fact, someone teach me something. If you go in through the API in FileMaker and you've got got to be part of the value list or whatever, and it's not, and you jack it in through the API, what does it do? Does anybody know? because it's the same thing. I'm going to test that now. That's funny. What should it do? So Salesforce allows you to bypass the rules sometimes. It's just a little weird. What will happen is, to flush it right out, what will happen is when the user goes into that opportunity and says, oh, I want to fix the money, then it hits save, then they kick. And you'll get like 9 red boxes, So, yeah. If you really want to get serious, I wasn't going to teach you this right today because we don't have time, but this is all the prerequisites of like making it all happen. Okay, so obviously you're going to Salesforce, you're Googling it up. There's a ton of resources. This app is really good. Salesforce is really good at API access. They're really fast. They're really diligent about those versioning numbers. The UI, Lightning's better, but they're really good. They're really good at that. They're really good at some stuff. They're really good at cashing your check. This is where we talked about connected apps. You can see there's just a couple of switches in here that are kind of fun. You can enforce IP validation, do timeout values, that type of stuff. So that you want to be, this is where you would say, I'm allowing FileMaker to hit me through the API. This we looked at. Again, good documentation. They've got these little SOCL query things you can go play. This is, you don't type here, you learn here, and then you go to your Workbench and kind of figure it all out. I think that's it, right? So I'm going to upload that file. If you guys want to mess around with it, it's pretty straightforward. Like, all you need is those 4 little lines. Here's some data, I'm posting, I'm patching, but then you got some work to do on the Salesforce side just to get it going. Yep. Oh, yeah. So you mean the back end thing? Okay. I can't quite, I don't want to go down that road until I understand your question fully. So it absolutely should. Yeah. We use a back-end sync because, again, so this whole session really wasn't about JSON, curl, posting, blah, blah. This session was trying to get you to think about, I can do all these things with all these apps out there. What happens if I chain them together because it's really fluid? And what are the risks and how does it all, just to get you thinking about that. I would say most of the time you would want to supplement. As you're working through that workflow, like I said earlier, you want to supplement with a back-end sync because some of the stuff that you want to sync is workflow dependent and some of it isn't. I don't care. I'm not doing anything with my quote lines. I don't have any rules in FileMaker that say, hey, does he have any servers on there? I'm not looking at the quote lines. And so I don't sync them up through the API call, although I could, absolutely. But why? I don't need it. There's no workflow rule that's saying check everything else up there or whatever. Yeah, you could use a trigger. Yep. Yeah. And so we send them up on the backside every 15 minutes, and then they can, again, do reporting or whatever is non-critical as far as real time. Yep.
And you use mirror sync for that.
We wrote our own. Yeah, I would, mirror sync definitely will save you some time. Syncs are really fun and easy, and you get them going really quickly, and then you forget about the delete, as Paul often reminds me. Yeah, because you're syncing, it's going great, and stuff's moving, and then you're deleting in one system, so you've got to have this extra table that says when I'm in FileMaker and I delete a record, right, it's got to know to go delete it in Salesforce, but it's no longer there to sync. Right? So you stuff it in this extra table, and then you sync that delete table, and it goes and cleans that up. So if you're going to roll your own, it's not hard, but it's just there's a couple little things that you don't figure out until the 3rd week in. We rolled our own. Yeah. That was everything else you saw was, we rolled everything. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The only trick I did there was the plugin, just because I don't have much patience for doing the virtual list thing. It works great. I'm not a pixel pusher much. Yep. Those are those 3 little, remember I said the JavaScript used to be easy, right? And then they decided in Lightning that on their new version that's too much of a risk. I don't understand security that well, but it's hey, those are the new rules. And so, you have to do a controller, Apex, you got the button, so there's all these little things that talk to one another. And looking at it, I showed it to you. I don't really understand what that does for security, but obviously it does something that they're happy about. So it used to be really simple to make those buttons, and now it's not so simple, but. Yes, yeah, as long as it has an API and a REST API, you could definitely hit any of that. Absolutely. Yep. What would be the, say it again? Well, like if you took this file, that's saving you 3 weeks, you know, just banging on it. Just stupid stuff. It's not like it's genius work. It's just like, oh, look, it doesn't work that way, you know. So you could, again, take those 4 lines and, you know, if you went into Salesforce, let's walk it through, right? You go home, you do Salesforce, you like read up on OAuth 2.0, you enable your app, that little in Salesforce. You get all your switches in Salesforce set, half a day maybe, you know, to figure it out and just kind of understand it. From there, assuming you have the same object names, which you should, because I was just using opportunity and account, no custom ones except for the quote, you could take those 3 lines of code, stick them in FileMaker and push a button, right? And it should work. And then you'd have to decide, like, oh, because the rest of it was just like, oh, if this, do that, you know, type stuff. Nice. All right, how am I doing on time? Oh, here comes the card. 2 minutes. I love that. That's so great. Thank you. Any other questions? Hopefully you had a little fun, and I gave you just some things to think about. And again, I'll make the file available and the deck. So thanks a lot for coming.